Hello, hello, and welcome to the
Hello.
Borealis Experience. I'm so happy to have my friend Gabrielle with me today. We connected many years ago at the college and reconnected now because Gabrielle is posting very inspiring stuff. He is a seeker for truth. He is a person who calls people out on their bullshit. He's the friend you wish you had at your side when shit gets, serious because he cuts through and allows you to see your blind spots. At least that's what I experience when I'm roaming around on your page. I really love how you connect physics and chemistry and spirituality, politics, geopolitics. Um, I'm really excited to share with my listeners, with the world, how your brain is approaching certain subjects nowadays that some people, feel very triggered and very helpless and powerless. And you just give people a beautiful angle on things, on topics that are affecting all of us at the moment. So this is why I invited you. Maybe I didn't give you a proper explanation on why I connected with you and wanted you on this podcast, but here you are, here we are. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Gabriel de Freitas.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. Where did your journey begin when it comes to expressing yourself like you do today? Were you always a very, expressive person, or did you have a time in your life where you were more of an introvert, more of an observer, and then there was a time where you knew you cannot hold it back anymore? Um, Fill us in.
Well, I grew up in Brazil, right? And we didn't have much. Like, we weren't poor, but we didn't really have much. So, like, my education was the only thing I had in contact with, like, thinking and putting my brain into things to do and other things. Right? But, like, so, like, growing up, it was a little bit of uh, unmotivational in terms of like what I would do and things like that, like education and other things. Because my school was like very dull. It's not like schools here in Canada where you have like a lot more experiences to do, like things to really learn. It's more like a industrial approach to education. So education to me was always kind of like I hated going to school. I totally hated, and I was super shy too growing up. So the whole thing of like socials inside of school was awful for me. I hated it. Like I totally hated going to school. I was always the kid that was like, I wasn't on the side of the most popular kids. And I also wasn't with the other kids it was just me and one other kid that was friends, what I'm saying? Always. And I always spent like kind of 1 or 2 years in each school that I ever studied in my life. I was always moving, going from school to school. So I never really like attached too long to someone, like friends and other things. I didn't have a brother growing up. My parents had one kid before I was born, but he died because of meningitis. So I grew up already like after my parents lost a kid, so they were kind of like attached, even though they divorced when I was like 4. And I grew up with my mom and stuff, but like, which was even poorer in terms of finance, like money and stuff. My father wasn't very present for the first few years and stuff, but like he came through later in life, like everyone needs to go through a journey of maturity, and he had one too. Made lots of mistakes, but like now I have another brother that I haven't even met because he's in Brazil. He's 6 years old, and my father is a totally different person too, even being more present than he has ever been in my life to my brother, right? So like it was only after, I would say, I was in grade 10 or 11 that like I started realizing that pretty much my whole life was in a state of kind of depression. The only happy moments I had were moments of like total different type of experiences. So like when I was with my father trying to like learn how to build a tree house, like literally grabbing wood and going to the top of the tree, nailing it down and trying to build a house. To me, that was like a total different experience. So like I didn't understand it back then, but my happiness came from the use of my brain, like thinking, applying to real life situations. The more on an autopilot I was living, the more depressed I would be. So just waking up every day, going to school, coming back, not seeing the point of it all, right? Like I hated math. To me, it was completely pointless. I study physics now. It's a total different person, and so like pretty much after like I was say 14 or 15, like I started rationalizing more, right? Like actually putting into words and thoughts in my mind. And I started realizing that I needed more than the school could offer me. So I was grade 11, around that. So like I had the opportunity of coming to Canada when I was 17. And then in Canada, I had a different experience to information and even the whole language itself, learning how to speak English. That was already like pleasing to my brain, so it was like a process. I didn't really understand myself after like 20 years. It took 20 years to understand that like I am thirsty for information, and that fulfills me in ways that pretty much nothing else does. The things that used to bother me of thinking through complicated issues was more like being bothered by the unknown, by the thinking of something that you had never thought before. But I started realizing that the more you think and the more you connect with other information, the easier it becomes. And then even for writing, like I studied international relations, right? With Leonardo, you remember Leo, right? Leonardo Nunes Maya, yeah. We were classmates in international relations, and international relations, it was one of the greatest experiences in my life to learn how to write, like how to write cohesively, how to write logical arguments based on literature, based on information with an academic logic. And I'm talking about 60 pages papers, like it's not short stuff. It's like a lot of information. And a lot of that is based on dialectic. Dialectic is like the logical argumentation of different points of views without actually ever coming to conclusion, because you can't come to a conclusion. Under dialectic, you're gonna analyze history and politics and the point of life itself and everything, but never actually come to a conclusion. You can talk about communism and capitalism, the awesome stuff from one thing, the awesome stuff from the other thing, the bad stuff from one thing, the bad stuff from the other thing. You can cross-reference them and put them against different scenarios, and you keep talking and talking and talking, but it never comes to a point to say, therefore, capitalism is the best one. Therefore, communism is the best one. You don't have to come to a conclusion, because you understand that it's so complex that there is no conclusion. Anything could be possible depending on innumerous types of like variables. So yeah, like I started like having that experience throughout my life, like reading different stuff. I would read from history, and all they were all things outside of school. They were all things that like I was curious for. So like when I first came to Canada, it was like kind of like the first time in my life that I read. I think I read like 9 books in a 1 year period when I was 17, right? So it was the first time in my life that I was like, I just want to. I Before that, I only had read Harry Potter. Like Harry Potter was the only thing I had ever finished reading, and I had the pleasure of reading. Before Harry Potter, I would say, I hate reading. I hate reading. I don't like reading. I wouldn't have patience for reading, right? But like Harry Potter kind of made me like, see, you actually like reading the stuff that you want to read. So when I came to Canada, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to read the school stuff. It's boring. I never liked it. It's not going to be today that I'm going to start liking it. So I went to the public library of Vernon in BC, right? And I just walked in, and I would like walk around, whatever book that piqued my interest, I would grab it and see if I wanted to read. And if I wanted, I would read the whole thing. So I started studying about religion, ancient religions, like Egypt religions, the whole history of Egypt, actually, and I was surprised to know for the first time in my life, right? Like I was like, what? Egypt lasted 2,000 years? And I was like, we're here for like what, 600, after the ocean expansions and ocean explorations, oversea exploration. So that was like in the 1500s. So rounded out to like 600 years. And our civilization in 600 years went through world wars, and all sorts of all of that stuff. So like, anyway, so I started connecting all of that information, like I was already the computer kid. So I already understood a lot about technology. Like I grew up, I was a hacker when I was a kid. I even got in trouble once with like the police, because I was hacking websites and yeah. But like, instead of like getting in trouble, the police just recommended my parents to put me in like this online course that lasted like actually 3 years, and would teach us how to use our hacking knowledge to make money, to like, like actually offer, security services to other companies and stuff. Yeah. So I'm like the result of a bunch of seeds that happened in multiple moments in my life. And I made sure to grab on and hold on to those seeds, that in now in the future, right? Like in the present, actually, the future from the past, I'm like harvesting those seeds because I made sure to protect them, kind of thing. But like, I went through a bunch of other bad stuff. Like I was kind of homeless when I was like around 7 years old, 6, 7. Like I was living with my mom. My father wasn't answering the phone. Like he thought it was like kind of like a ruse, or we were, lying or something. My mom was lying to draw attention or something. But like, there was this huge rain fall in Brazil and stuff, and there was floods everywhere, and we lost our house to the floods. The floods, like literally, I remember this huge tsunami wave coming down and then like just destroying the whole house. And we were like leaving on the last second, the car with like, it looks like a movie, like an apocalyptic movie, and I was a kid, right? Like I was inside of the car and stuff. So like, it was just me, my mom in the car for like 8 months or so. We were like literally sleeping at the parking lot of a pharmacy, because the pharmacy had like an overnight security guard, right? So it was kind of safer. But like, it was 8 months that I didn't know how long it was going to last. It was 8 months that it could have, like, to me, it was like maybe years, like I didn't know when it was going to last. It's too much anxiety, right? Every day you like, is this the last day? Every day. And then 8 months through it, like it feels like an eternity. But I choose to look back and like, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything, because all of these things are what made me the person that I am today, It's like a roller coaster. Would you make the roller coaster flat? Like if you make the roller coaster flat, it's not a roller coaster anymore. It's not fun. There's no point to it. Life is kind of like a roller coaster. If you change the up and downs, then it's not life anymore. Like even if you look at history and evolution, life, like the whole thing, like we are literally the product of everything that didn't die. That's basically what evolution is,
Yeah.
Anything that didn't die kept reproducing and passing its genes to next generations and next generations, and that's why we're here. Like, so are we gonna be like, oh, that's not fair, that's bad, like who are we to judge this natural cycle of life? One day this planet is gonna blow up in one way or another, either by the expansion of the star itself, and completely swallowing it up, or by internal reactions. But like the planet itself doesn't last forever. Not even the state of sustaining life, that's going to go way before the planet goes. But like at some point, even the planet itself is going to break apart and just become dust again, billions and billions of years in the future. But whenever that does happen, even more billions and billions and billions of years later, all of that dust might just clog up again and make another planet, and then life starts again, or not. But it's really for all we know, we are made of carbon that was once life in another planet, so literally organic molecules, right? So carbon, protein, amino acids, and other things. So like, again, I don't want to like jump forward, but like, yeah, basically that's me. I'm always like connecting one thing to the other.
So, my dear listeners, this is Gabriel in a nutshell. I hope I didn't, you so far exceeded my expectations. And I find it so beautiful, like how easily you put things into words and then express yourself so that it's very easily to follow you as well. What I love most is when you explained was it dialectic?
Dialectic. Yeah, it's got like this tick before it instead of like dialect.
Yes.
Right? So dialect is more like language, and dialectic, it's this argumentation of points without ever like really coming to a conclusion, because it would be hypocritical to come to a conclusion.
Exactly. And I feel this is what everybody has to look at right
Learn.
now. Yes, yeah. Learn in order to stay centered and grounded, and yes, to stay informed, but to not run around like chickens with a chopped off head, right? And to know that life is so extremely complex, and our brain will always want to find something to cling on to. But the moment we do that, we see separation and feel separation. We see others and us, and we see something is happening over here, but not over here. And you help people to see the connectedness and the big picture. And I'm sure that, I struggled with depression and still have my depressive phases, but to see the big picture, to see how small we are and how big this universe is, and how, short our lifespan is, it puts you into perspective and helps you to kind of get out of this darkness. At least it did it for me when I listened to you. And then the second thing I'd like to comment on is the policemen, the guys who caught you hacking and who saw your potential, who saw that this youngster has strong energy and he's using it, for the wrong reasons right now. And we're going to channel this energy into something.
Online vandalism. That's what hacking is. Online vandalism.
Yes.
It's really just, hey, I'm going to walk in here. This is a nice website, but you lost it.
Oh,
Just because I can, and you failed on protecting it. Ha ha ha.
yes. Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
But for them to channel your energy into something good probably saved your life, because they could have come and just punished you and made you feel like the worst person ever. And then you could have either become more depressed or more destructive.
Yeah, exactly. More criminal. You know what? I'm gonna now start stealing money. Yeah.
And then how you went through the homelessness and the extreme pains at a very young age, and to see you, blossom today and being there for others, inspiring others, is so incredibly inspiring. You're not a victim to to the circumstances that you went through. You kind of rose above and learned from it, and are not now helping others. And when it comes to,
I was a victim until I realized. Sorry, I was a victim until I realized that I had a choice. That it's all about a choice, and it's kind of something that people get offended about, right? Like when you say like you have to choose to be happy. Like even you're in depression, whatever it is. The problem is when the person in depression, because I was this person once, hears that it's all about a choice, they take it to a personal side of like, so you mean that I haven't made that choice yet? So you mean that it's all my fault? So you mean, and then they go down in a spiral that's not even that way. They are the one interpreting that as an offensive thing. What we're saying that it's your choice is because it's your choice to start making something different about what you're feeling, eat better, sleep better, like exercise. You have to really force yourself through these things because they are what will break the cycle. You're in like a circle going around, and that's the easiest movement, right? Like to break out of that movement, you have to spend extra energy. It's kind of like getting out of the planet with a rocket, right? Going to the moon with a rocket. That's called the velocity escape velocity. So the escape velocity is basically the amount of energy that you need to spend in order to break apart from the pull of the gravity of the Earth. If you're like 1 kilometer per hour is lower than the speed that's required, you're gonna go up, and then back to Earth. You know what I'm saying? So like you need to have that constant extra speed to break out of that. It's the same thing when you're in a cycle in life of depression, of bad things. You say that it's because of the depression and you have this condition and you hug it out and you protect it and you say that, oh, I can't go and do an exercise because I don't feel like living. Guess what? You will not. If you're like waiting for some kind of medicine that will take and help you, maybe that should, in some cases that's good, like it will help you as a temporary leverage, but you also can't depend on that. Like you have to use that leverage of the medicine that you were prescribed and like literally address the roots of the issue while you have some kind of movement, but you have to do something about it. It's not just going to be like something that's going to come and make you feel better and then suddenly you're going to start working out and do everything, blah, blah, blah. Like, even if that happens, you're just going to be dependent on that medicine because you still haven't addressed the issues, So the idea is like you take the medicine, you take action, but the action is the important part. The medicine is just an aid, So you take the action and you bring the results out after that action.
Totally. That all makes so much sense. And depression feels like gravity times 10, like gravity and then times 10. It makes you so heavy and so lethargic. And to bring up the energy to break out of it is, you just think it's not possible. It's never going to happen. And don't get me wrong, the journey is tough and not beautiful. But there is also parts to it that are extremely light and easy, and remembering who you were as a child and what truly brings you joy. So it really has, very beautiful sides to it and very tough sides. But once you overcome them, you are so much stronger and so much more yeah, resilient and able to see that life is incredibly precious and beautiful. Very, very well put into words. I have a feeling that I want to invite you back onto this show and talk more about geopolitics, but to just cut a little bit into what's happening right now with humanity and to show people how you address these circumstances right now. What would you say? Where did we drift off, and where are we at right now? And how can we, as a whole, get to a better place?
Well, one way I like to start analyzing these things is looking at the entire nature of humanity, you know. And when you look at the entire nature of humanity, you have to look at the entire history, at least as much as we know about the history of humanity, right? There are things that we're only recently discovering. I forgot now the name of the city, but it's in Turkey. There is this ancient city in Turkey. It was literally, as far as we know now, which is recent discovery for the last 5 years, I guess. That ancient city was the first city of humanity, you know, ever, and it lasted literally over 1,000 years. And that was before the Sumerians, before the Egyptians, before the Mayans and Aztecs. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm talking about like 12, 16,000 years ago. You know, that's a lot of time. And ever since then, we've been in a cycle. There is no drifting off. We're still in the cycle. Even when we go through periods of peace, it's all just part of the cycle. You know, like it's not like, oh, we got peace and then now we ruined. No, it was already just, we never broke out of it. You know, we still never broke out of it because it lacks, we're still children as a race, you know, as a brain, a collective brain. We're still very, very, very immature. Oh, but we've been here for thousands of years. Yeah, but we're still immature, you know, like in many ways, in many, 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 many ways. Like the whole is the result of the sum of the parts, right? So like the entire result of all the reality of humans is literally the result of individual parts. There is nothing divine that comes and dictates the war and stuff. No, it's really just humans acting among each other, you know. So how are we to expect anything different if we know? Have you met humans? You know, we know how humans are. We know how lost they are in their own existence. Sometimes they even live their entire lives being lost, you know, and no matter if they die at 20 or if they die at 80, you know, they might still live their entire lives and completely lost. Lost in the reasons, lost in because reality is entirely subjective, especially for the human mind. You know, we're completely programmable, conditionable, indoctrinatable. You know, if you grab a human and you raise that human inside of a white room their entire lives and you don't show them anything, and then when they're like later older and you walk in with this, let's even take off the whole experience of someone walking in. Let's say that's fine, because even that would be like, holy shit, who are you? You're an alien. Am I alone? What you know, like it would be a whole. But let's say that person walks in and shows a drawing of a kid that and says this is a picture of outside. The human would totally believe because they don't have anything to relate to, like any other information to say like, oh no, this is real and this is a drawing. You know, like they it's how our mind works. We can be literally educated to believe in any reality possible, even be happy within war. If you look at like Vikings, for example, it's a perfect example that most people would know. Vikings were literally happy for killing people. And that was looked up upon, you know what I'm saying? But like, it was the reality of back then, because that's really how one person would sustain the other reality, right? Like everyone that's part of the entire reality was sustaining the reality itself. So it took hundreds of years to break out of that, of that one culture. But if you analyze the whole violence of cultural violence, we're still in thousands of years in cycles. We just changed our methods and stuff, but we're still going to war, justifying for the same reasons, justifying because of cultural differences, religion differences. Why do you think countries have official religions? It's really just a practice that started at the beginning of modern organizations of societies in order to avoid war. Like they would say, like, no, our country is officially Catholic, so let's not fight about that. It's decided, what I'm saying? Like it was literally because before you'd have conflicts, right? Like people would start like killing each other and justifying because no, they're not from here. They have a different religion, or something like that. So like it was officially determined one, so that the whole government and state would like educate the rest of the population on that one religion and kind of like uniform things, right? Unify things. So like stabilize by making everyone under one influence, build more churches and whatever. So that's literally just a reason to avoid conflict. But conflict keeps happening all the time. It's unavoidable, and it always comes from these, like there's this awesome philosopher that I love, Krishnamurti. I don't know how to properly pronounce his name. It's a Indian guy. Krishnamurti, I think it's. But like he's like old, like it's probably around the same times as Alan Watts. Alan Watts? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Alan Watts, I think it's 1920, 1940, something like that. Krishnamurti is around the same time. So you see recordings of him the same way as you find recordings of Alan Watts, right? So like really old recordings and stuff. And there's this one that I really like that Krishnamurti is like having this presentation, right? Like, and he says like there is this ever sustaining for thousands of years we've been at war every year. There's not a single year that there's no conflicts on the planet. Never, ever, ever. We're now like, oh no, Russia and Ukraine, yeah. But yeah, like, have you met the rest of the planet? We're always at war. The only difference is how much you get to know of it, how much it generates an engagement and all other things, right? But like even if you like people say like, oh, where's the world going at? Same place where it's always been going, like in a circle, exactly, And that circle is like it has worked out so far. I mean, we're still alive, right?
Yeah.
But that circle, if we don't break out of it, might one day just blow itself up, Like if we just keep going, oh, it's working, and suddenly collapses on itself and blows up, like because we're not immortals. That's another thing the philosophy would teach you, right? Like, but before I go to that immortals part, which is Stoicism, like so, Krishnamurti, right? So like, he says like throughout history, there's been this collection of things that sustain war. Differences from religions that don't agree with each other, cultures that don't agree with each other, countries that don't agree with each other, scientists that don't agree with each other, and all sorts of the. Can't you see? And he literally goes like, only a fool can see this, because it's so obvious. Like, so what is the supreme outcome of like desirable outcome to actually stop having wars is unification, the only way. But like then we're talking about very dangerous things too, because that process is not going to be beautiful. It's not going to be a clean process. I mean, look at the world we have now. Even in terms of the cycle, it's pretty unprecedented. We've never had the population numbers we have now. throughout history. We spent like millions of years with a very stable population, of humans, because that's a whole math thing, right? So like a mathematical phenomenon. If you have a certain number of populations, the scalability of reproduction, especially of humans, which we barely have one or two kids every time we reproduce, right? I mean, if you have twins, that would be two, but like it's not like dogs that have like 12 kids, 12 offspring. So we reproduce at a scalable rate. Like you can calculate the probability of all of that. So if you have like less than 1 million humans on the entire planet, and that was like around the times of Vikings and all of that stuff, like all the way until I think we broke like a billion over. I think it was like the 1800s or 1900s was the first time we were like 1.1 billion kind of thing. So it took millions of years for us to get to a certain number of population. Up until then, if you had like a plague or anything, that would like decimate 200,000 people, 500,000 people. That meant literally decimating half of the human life on the planet. So like we were constantly being tested against the probabilities of evolution, life, natural selection, and all of those things. Literally, we only survived because some of us had some immunities to some diseases and other things. We didn't have vaccines and other things. So like we survived literally just by nature itself. So if you like basically I lose my thoughts sometimes. So like, well, where was I going at?
I mean, we were talking about evolution. We talked about the circle of life, that conflict was always part of it. That
it's the evolution thing.
That the amount of people on the planet was usually very stable, and then there came a plague and it diminished.
Exactly. So basically like it's only expected that some things would escalate in a certain way, right? Like wars and diseases and all other things. But like after we start getting to a certain numbers of populations, because it's unprecedented. That's the thing I was talking about. So we're literally in unprecedented moments of history right now. Like it's not like, sure, there is a cycle of things, but we are witnessing things that have never happened before. Even the whole thing of us as a biological life form, right? Like we're imagine if you have a jar at home and then you put some plants inside, and then over like weeks or something, some like little snail starts growing because there was like an egg of a snail in the plant, like we're literally like this. We're inside of like this closed environment, which is the atmosphere, right? The atmosphere is a dome. The flat earthers are gonna like this one. It's a dome, but like that protects the life itself with like an electromagnetic field. It protects from the solar rays, the radioactive solar rays, right? So like inside of this environment, we grew as this result of molecules and organic molecules, right? Carbon and other things throughout billions of years. And now we're just like this flea, we're just jumping out of the atmosphere and we're going to another planet. This is like completely unprecedented in this cycle of things. Like it's a life form completely taking control of its destiny in a way. I'm saying like it's completely different than everything that has ever before. But at the same time, the cycle is still happening. So it's like some of us, through the natural selection of, that's how history has happened throughout life, entirely. Some of us will die inside of this cycle, while other members of our life form will go into another cycle, you know what I'm saying? So it's how it's been always, like from going from tribes to countries. When we started reaching a certain amount of population on the planet, then we started forming countries and all of that stuff. First was kingdoms, right? Like we had kingdoms. If you look like at England, for example, England, the history of England is a nice way. I mean, not only England, but also Germany, and Sweden and the entire Nordic area, right? So like, if you look at that area, it's a perfect example of like, imagine the whole planet was just that. Put an ocean everywhere else, just in history. Just imagine humans only existed in that area there. We had like, before the Vikings started attacking England, which is completely isolated by water, right? Like an island. Before the Vikings started attacking, England had like 8 kings, like 9 kings or something. It was Wessex and a bunch of other, I can't remember all the names of the kingdoms, but like it was only after this external threat of the Vikings, almost like an aliens, right, that they started working together, and even through conflicts, even against themselves, right? Like they didn't want to work together. So, but like one king would like, you know what? If we keep fighting among ourselves, we're gonna keep losing to the Vikings and stuff. So I know you're not gonna stop fighting, so I'm gonna kill you, take over the power, and then as a one unified nation, I'm gonna fight against the Vikings. But look at that, like what's the result now in history? We have a country called England, right? And it's pretty much one unified nation, even though there's different cultures and all that stuff. But like it's the natural cycle of history, like we have to have lessons in history in order to create other solutions. So why do we know that for example, the Holocaust, why do we know that it's so bad and that we have to do everything that we can to never happen again? Literally because it happened. You see my point? If it never happened, how would we know to protect ourselves from it happening in the future? So like it's life itself. History will always continue happening because we either learn from it to stop from it happening again, or we forget and it will happen again. Because if we forget, it's like it never happened,
that makes total sense.
So like even the form of, go ahead.
Every like horrible thing, like put it in very simple English, that happened in the past, if we choose to learn from it, if we went through intense pain and realized, okay, now we got to change our course, we have to change how we think, we have to become more aware, more sensitive, it is for the better. Of course, it was so bad, and we don't want to be living through it anymore, or not having people suffering, but it's part of life, and we can do everything to not make it repeat itself. It makes total sense. Yeah.
Exactly. And like even the whole concept of countries that we have now, right? Sovereignty. So the ability that the country has to completely have control over its own reality without suffering external influences. That's pretty much what sovereignty is, right? It's my country. I deal with my stuff. Even if there's a fire in the Amazon, you can't just walk in with your army and help us because we are a sovereign country, So like even a smaller country that pretty much has no defense or anything has the right to be protected because they are sovereign, So like, let's say, what's a small country out there, like Azerbaijan, what I'm saying? Like if Azerbaijan gets attacked by another nation and stuff, we made an agreement, like a club. We literally, as the leaders of the countries that existed as a result of kingdoms and wars and a bunch of other stuff, those countries started existing. And after even more time, before we continue having more conflicts, because of the conflicts that were already happening, like the First World War, we then got together and you know what? This is not sustainable. Like, it's not like it used to be before that I have like all of this land between us and my little tribe here and your little castle over there with like 1,000 soldiers, and I have another 2,000 soldiers, and then we fight by fight with like spears and stuff, and then it's my castle now. Like, it's not like that anymore. We have a lot of people, and every war we have, a lot of people die, and it's a fucking nightmare. So it's just not sustainable. Sure, there's money involved and stuff, but like, even with the money involved in war and all the interests of creating war because of that, it's still not sustainable. Even those guys that want war also know that too much war is a little problematic. So they said, you know what? Let's get together and let's sign this document that we made a club. It's literally just a club. Imagine like friends from kindergarten get together, and you're like, every time we have a break, we're gonna come to this plastic castle here, and no one is gonna come in without a password. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's literally what a club is. The UN is a club. It's not a official thing because it's not even sovereign on itself. It's just the result of international cooperation. You know, so because the majority of the countries, which is 219, I think, are in the UN. I think the total is 226, 22. I don't know. There's some countries that are not in the UN, like Taiwan. I might be confusing, but yeah. The island outside of China. Is it Taiwan? I think it's Taiwan.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So Taiwan is like a country on itself, but it's not part of the UN. So no one that's part of the UN, Brazil, Canada, Germany, no one recognizes Taiwan as a country. No one, because they are not part of the UN. That's how it works. If you're part of the UN, everyone else recognizes each other as a country, as an official country. And therefore, sovereignty exists because they agree on creating sovereignty, because they also want sovereignty for themselves, right? So it's like we were constantly at this huge wave. We were constantly at this huge wave throughout history, right? And then we kind of like stabilized a little bit more with this cooperation, because again, population numbers, we started reaching 6-7 billion people. We're almost at 8. I think we passed 7.5 already, so we're getting closer to 8 billion people. So like, the more people on the planet, the more of these social demands of peace, harmony started raising up more. Wars now are like, before it was completely defined by the leaders of a country. And now it's like, if a leader of a country declares war at another country, there is enough population of civilians to completely change the outcome of that war, like either force the country to pull off the war or other things, there is an unprecedented weight on that. There's a lot more weight on the power that the civilians have, because we are more powerful as people in our lives too. We're not like the farmers back in medieval times that literally had what would you do? Nothing. Now, like, even a billionaire like Elon Musk can like really change the outcome of some things, like with the Ukraine thing. His invention of internet satellites really made Ukraine have a huge advantage over the war, because Russia would attack them trying to cut their communications, right? Which makes strategic movements a lot harder if you don't have proper communication. But then the whole internet is still working because it's coming from satellites, and a lot of satellites. So it's not like Russia can just send a missile and destroy it, even though they might be trying, But like, so like, it's one individual. It's not a country. It's not, like no other huge force, religion, people, a group of people. No, it's one person, literally one person that went through his own journey with his own goals, like a useful goal for humanity, which is advancement of technology, and other things. And he's using that to help, you know what I'm saying? So like you have a difference even when it comes to these people, right? You have like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. One is all about the money and himself and his own ego, right? Like he wants to like show off and spend with futile things. And the other guy is like walking barefoot, lives under the poverty line, like literally sleeps in couches and stuff. It's Elon Musk, like the guy doesn't have any money in his bank account. Like he literally doesn't liquidate anything. All his assets are completely, what's that?
I totally agree. I just thought of Jeff, and of course what he represents as a personality is very extreme compared to Elon Musk. But think of the world without Amazon. Like we would.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I mean, it is also a solution. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also something that he is, bringing to the world that we use probably, I don't know, every day, every week, every month at least. And but he chooses to present himself differently and is maybe not as humble as Elon Musk. So I just
but he did make useful things for sure.
Exactly.
Like especially even his own, like he's also competing against Elon Musk with the whole space thing, right? And that's awesome. That's great, because like even Elon Musk loves the whole thing. Like he's like excited for more competition because it inspires him too, like
to be better.
Like, they're doing this. Exactly.
Yeah.
Push a little bit more. Yeah.
It creates great things if you don't let it crush you. And I love in everything you say, like I take so much more away from what you say, but what I take away is that the individual is so much more powerful than we want to admit at times, and then we feel at times. And this leads to my next question to you. How do you use media? How do you inform yourself? How do you keep the big picture in mind? Share with us to help people who are listening, who are right now feeling powerless and desperate, and everything is dark, everything is going to go down. What can we share with the people who feel a little more dark than a couple years ago?
Well, I think everything starts with, like, at least for me, I approach pretty much every information I have and reality itself from a Stoic point of view. So Stoicism is like a philosophy not only influenced by the what's his name, whatever, Stoic, blah, 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 the name of the guy itself, but also influenced by Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and other philosophers and stuff, which are the ones I study more. There's this, I forgot the name of the guy, but like it's the guy that which the name Stoic comes from, but like that guy I never really studied. I've always studied Marcus Aurelius and Seneca as my main Stoic point of view type of influencers, what I'm saying? Basically what Stoicism is always talking about is it's pointless to worry about the things that you don't have control over, and from that point on, understanding the things that you don't have control over even goes over understanding life itself, death, and all the other things. You always have to remind yourself you're mortal, and life is life. It's part of, there's things that you can't control. You have a choice. You either live life understanding those things, or you will always be in pain because of the things that you can control. It starts with that choice, what I'm saying? Identifying those things. What is the reality, and what is the things that inside of that reality that I can't control? History is one of those things. And why were you not sad when other moments of history happened? Because you either weren't there, or because you never really got to know about that, So when you get to know about another piece of information, you have a choice of what you do with that. You have a choice to behave like, okay, but if I didn't know this, would it be affecting me? Like I'm here in my country, things are working, and I hope things work out there, even if they get worse before they do, but it is part of the getting better. So like even the whole conflict with Russia, an example, like the way this is happening, it was unavoidable. It will happen. It would happen and in the future at any moment. The same way as already started happening since years ago. you know, um, the whole conflict in that area is ancient. Like Ukraine has been invaded since it was a kingdom for thousands of years. And because of that conflict in that area, and during that time in history, Ukraine once was part of the Soviet Union. But before the Soviet Union, they were independent as well. So they got consumed by the Soviet Union, and then the Soviet Union took over for generations in there. And then the Soviet Union lost the war and then got broken apart. Ukraine declared itself independent and separated its history again from Russia. But the whole thing is happening again because, again, it hasn't been solved. It has always been just pushed forward, and but the threat always still exists. Is the whole ideology. Putin is a guy that since he took over, he talks about bringing the Soviet Union back in power. Like it's an open discussion thing. It's not like hidden from anyone and stuff. Like he talks about it. He talks about it in a way that's not going to bring him any international issues. So he talks very softly about it, but it's in his mind. It's part of his plan. You know what I'm saying? Soviet Union never really stopped existing. They were forced to change their names. They were forced to follow under a specific type of regime, because of NATO and OTAN, like the international community after the wars, the conflicts took over and like forced them to stay in line. But the organization itself, the ideology kept living on for generations, So Putin is really still the result of that ideology. It's still the same Soviet Union mentality. So the only way this would never happen is if one day he would die and then some other democratic movement would take over in Russia, freedom of market, freedom of even, everything else, being gay and all of that stuff. If like the whole reality of Russia would change politically, but even for that, it meant it wouldn't be like one day Putin would just call for elections and allow that to happen. It would be either by a coup, coup d'etat, so like a strike, a government, like attack, right? Like they would take over, or him just having a health issue itself and then dying, and then the power being fought off by other people involved in that, and hopefully the right one taking over. So like it's not a beautiful process. Even when it would be happening, it would be like, oh, that's nasty. No one would like that. It would be like, oh, where's the world going at? But it's going at the progress that it has to.
Yeah.
So like even this whole conflict itself right now that's happening, it's better to be happening now. I mean, and I'm talking about, again, like, oh my God, you're saying that it's good? No. Again, we're looking at history from like imagining the planet, and like looking for thousands of years and stuff. It's better to happen now while we still have some kind of organization with the whole world and stuff. And then might be the last conflict between that issue with Russia and Ukraine. Because even this movement, strategically speaking, this whole movement that Putin did, is dumb. It's his final, like it's gonna be his own undoing. It's literally his downfall. So like he's gonna either keep pushing and then eventually win and then take over, and then from that takeover, his territory is gonna be breaking a bunch of international laws agreed by. Because once he takes over and Ukraine becomes part of Russia, then his territory is too close to atomic bombs from the Allies, atomic bombs from the OTAN and all this stuff. And that breaks a bunch of other rules and stuff. So he will demand those atomic bombs to be removed, and then the allies will be like, we're not going to remove them, and then another conflict is going to keep happening because now his territory is too close to that and he's going to demand those things and stuff. Or he's not going to win, which is most likely. There's no way he's going to take over Ukraine because Ukraine is like, right now it's a proxy war, right? No other countries can get involved because if they get involved, then it triggers a bunch of other international mechanisms of agreements, of defense, and stuff. So no other countries can get involved, but they can get involved by proxy, which means they can send weapons and technology and information and money to Ukraine, and help Ukraine hold off the threat. And so far, Russia is getting their ass kicked. It's been bad for Ukraine and lots of destruction, yes, but it is not going like Putin had imagined. Putin thought it was like, in a week, we're going to take the whole thing. In 3 days, we're going to take the whole thing off. No, he's like getting his ass kicked. He would send there's even one video that three Russian jets, more advanced even, got taken down by one jet of Ukraine, and there's even this whole motivation behind it, right? The Russian soldiers, they're being told that Ukraine is getting invaded by Nazis and communists, and and there's a dictatorship going on and stuff. And so they're not super motivated because it's kind of like you believe because you've been indoctrinated to believe in whatever the government tells you. But at the same time, you kind of know something is off, So you're not really fighting with all your strength. But the Ukrainians are fighting with their souls for this, So one jet fighter can take a more advanced other ones because they are at their right. They're feeling like, I need to defend my country. Yeah. And the Russians are just like, well, I'm following orders. They told me to attack, but they're not really doing with I need to go there and fight. They're not fighting with their souls. Yeah. So this war is not going to go they will not win. It's going to be destructive and stuff. But at some point, he will either have to retreat or he will fall to someone inside of the government. Someone inside of the government, even the army itself might be like, you know what? This is insane. I'm losing my men and I'm losing everyone and stuff, So we're just going to go and take either kill him or literally just take him out of power, put him in jail, throw him in some secret jail that no one's in Siberia, that no one's going to know about it. Napoleon was kind of like that, right? No one killed Napoleon because it's a symbol of power. If you kill that guy, that power just explodes everywhere and people will fight for it and it's going to be nasty. But if you just put him in a secret place and no one knows about it, it's well, he might come back and I'm better just behave a little bit, so people kind of hold back their ambitions a little more because the guy is still alive. So, but anyway, it's not gonna go too far, And even another option is he might misfire something and hit another country and hit another population, or even kill the member of another nation that's inside of Ukraine and is important, like the leader of some Indian political party, that's in Ukraine. I don't know, anything like that. Yeah. And by that, causing the other countries to get involved, not by proxy, but directly, and then push him back totally, and then get inside of Russia and take over, like we did with Afghanistan and other countries, anyway, that might be the last conflict. That might be the conflict that we need in order for this to not happen again. You know? The same way as we had other moments in history.
Yeah. No, it all makes sense what you say.
But it's not in your control.
No, it's not. It's not in my control. And I love the Stoic approach that you shouldn't get too tangled up with things that you have no control over. I have a friend from Calgary who actually flew to Poland and is now in the Ukraine to actively help. And I find that so incredibly cool because he was just sick and tired of feeling powerless in Calgary on his little farm there, having all the, everything he needed, and decided to go and help. And I find that
But
very
even at
remarkable.
that, look how unprecedented that is, right? Because that person is just one individual. Imagine 500 years ago, would that person be able to have the power to be like, I want to relocate my body to the other part of the planet? That would be hard as fuck. Like, that's a lot of power. And how does that power come from? Airplanes, which is an advancement that we had through science, through engineering, through education in universities, allowing more people to have more information and then have a lot more engineers working on those things, right? But weren't the airplanes also used for war right after they were invented? I mean, they were actually their advancement were pushed because of war. Like before the war, they were just a prototype. And then the war came and they were like, that prototype, let's make that thing work better, and then they just kept like week after week releasing new airplanes. And then after the war, we were like, oh, let's make this nice commercial airplane to take people to the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
Because we learned from the lesson how to use the information we had in a better way, We still have war airplanes, but, but we're still making a progress.
Yeah,
it's going to take a lot more time for even not have those war ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I also loved what you said is like I imagined Russia and Ukraine as sparring partners, martial arts. I love martial arts. And to picture, okay, the one guy has just hatred and wants to destroy. And the other guy he wants to have fun. He wants to conquer his opponent and be good at what he does. And the different intention that your sparring partners can have is going to directly affect your outcome. I think that's what I understood what you said with how Putin and
it's funny that you took it to martial arts because like I take a lot of my analysis from martial arts too. Brown belt of Kung Fu, yellow, which is not much in Taekwondo, 1 year of Krav Maga, 2 years of Muay Thai, and I think that's it. Oh, no.
Jiu-Jitsu, come on.
Kickboxing thing, yeah. No, I don't like full contact. I never liked like staying there and being like, I'm going to grab you here and I'm going to grab your leg. Like, I don't, like, before that, I feel like kicking the guy's face, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's my instinct is more like fast contact, But in any way, like Kung Fu is the one I advanced the most, right? Like almost got to black belt. But like I did, I think like 8 years of Kung Fu in my life. And my master was very philosophical, like we learned a lot about like discipline and respect and all of the things. And even how to understand these conflict things, right? I also read a lot of Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and it's kind of one of my favorite books. And it's a very simple one. You can literally read the whole thing in one afternoon. It's very simple. It's just notes, quick notes. It's not like complicated texts or anything. But like if you put that concept of like the entire thing that Sun Tzu teaches you with martial arts and all that stuff, like I analyze a lot of things like this. And martial arts is actually one of the first things to do in my life that I realized that like depression and sadness or any type of things that you think you don't have control, because there's that too. You might, sure, there's things that you don't have control, but there's some things that you think you don't have control. And you also have to watch out for those things so you don't become like a commodist, like someone in a comfortable zone, right? Like, oh, I can't do anything about it, right? That's kind of like a nihilism even. You gave up on thinking, on doing anything because you think everything you don't have control. But there's some things that you do have control, your mental health, your reality, even if it moves very slowly, but you can change your reality in a 10 years period. You can become anyone, anyone, you might be the person that just plays video game all day, is overweight and is bad at sports and all that stuff. But if you decide that in 10 years you will become the guy that runs in a full-on Adidas suit with his gold retriever at 5 a.m. in the morning, running around, that those people that you see in the morning when you drive into work and you're like, that guy's running. I barely even woken up already, and the guy's already running and jogging with his dog and stuff. You can become any type of person, any personality, any, profile of type of person. When you say like, oh, I'm like this, this is my type of person. I'm introvert. I'm this. I'm lazy. I blah blah blah. Like you can change the whole profile and become an entirely different person. And that's really like through this analysis of martial arts.
Yeah. So what's your favorite quote from Bruce Lee or any martial arts?
Well, Bruce Lee, actually, one of the favorite ones I have is the one about water, right? That he goes and says, yeah, like if you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. If you put water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Yeah. I remember by heart.
I could be sitting here for a couple more hours and listen to you, and I'm pretty sure we didn't disappoint our listeners. Like, I really feel my podcast wouldn't be complete if I didn't have you here, because your words make total sense. I love where your brain goes, and I love how you explain things, how you express yourself. But your energy, like, I wish someday we can put this on YouTube, is so soothing and so close to saying fatherly, brotherly, and you love people. You went through extreme hardship. I wish I could hug Gabriel from when he was 7 years old and homeless, and tell him that he's going to become a wonderful, precious man.
I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't believe, like, even if you went back 10 years ago and you told me the person I am today and everything that I do on a daily basis, I would say, like, math, you're crazy. Like, I hate mathematics, like I wouldn't, like, I've always wanted to be a scientist, but like back then it would be more like computer science, but even that, I kind of like, I dropped out and then I went to study international relations because I was too afraid of the math. When I was like taking already calculus 3, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't see the point, because I had a better education too. Like my teachers, my professors from the university back in Brazil, they were too just memorize this. Why for? Just do it. Like they didn't really they didn't guide the information as like, if someone like me were to go back in time and talk to me about math, and show me the point behind it, I probably would be marvelous. Like I'll be like, oh my God, really? Mm-hmm. All of that. Like I didn't see the point in like how everything has a number, like everything. And there is like these beautiful, pleasing coincidences of numbers in nature, like from ratios of sizes of planets to the strength of gravity. If gravity was like a little bit weaker, planets would just start flying everywhere. If gravity was just a little bit stronger, planets would just fall to their stars and things would be like completely chaos all the time. There's this mathematical balance. It's a number that you can calculate and you find between mass and gravity. The attraction it's a mathematical balance. So like when you understand how numbers apply to these balances, it's curious. You want to know more, you want to understand more. It's hard. Like, don't get me wrong, I suck at it. I'm really bad at math still, but like I study all the time. Like I'm always studying, like wow. This is really like, and these things I would not even dream of understanding, like I look at them and I'm like, I understand them, but why do I understand them? Because I pushed against the pain,
Yes.
and I still do.
Yes.
Every time I'm going to start studying, I'm like, it's going to, because it takes 8 hours of studying for you to like, oh, I understand this question now. you know. But then next day, when you approach that same question again, it's not 8 hours anymore. It's going to be another 8 hours for a new type of subject, new type of calculation. But then it's not going to be anymore the next time. So it's just like you just have to keep pushing. It's kind of like the same thing with meditation. People say, "Oh, I can't do math," because you don't do math. "Oh, I can't meditate," because you don't meditate. If you don't meditate, it's not going to be like, "Oh, I have the ability of sitting down and being like, meditation." If you never meditated before, like if you never meditated, even if you're a super calm person, I've seen it. Let's meditate. The guy is like super calm. He always speaks like this, but never meditated in his own life. And then let's sit down and let meditate. Sits down and he's like, it can't focus, can't let go of the body and relax. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Always like eating something, shaking something, or like checks the phone. So a person that never meditates will never be able to meditate right away. It's about like creating the habit of every day.
Yes.
And maybe even removing the word, like when you put like, "I'm gonna meditate," then you put this pressure of a method, of a process. Instead of saying, "I'm gonna meditate," "I'm gonna take some time to think."
Yeah.
That's basically it. Just take 5 minutes, sit down and think about things that your mind want to think. Whatever thought comes, deal with it, process the thought, slow down. I mean, we're every day driving, we're every day cooking and talking to people and going to work. And like we wake up and it's phone and then go and then do things they do. And then we get to a point then where you're like, I'm going to sleep, and then repeat everything the next day. Right. But like, when do you allow yourself to think about what your mind wants to think? Like what I'm feeling, what is it that I'm feeling, where am I now, right now? Am I okay? Am I happy? And sometimes people say like, "I'm depressed. I don't know why," because you haven't allowed your mind to find the why. You're always like running.
Autopilot.
So like it's meditation. It's literally autopilot. Exactly. So like meditation is literally just allowing yourself to sit down for a moment and not have your mind think about anything else that it doesn't have to. Just think about whatever it wants to think. It's scary at first because sometimes, depending on how much you have bottled up, you're going to have to face a bunch of really bad thoughts that on a daily basis. When those thoughts come, you just like, and then you do something else and you go work and you answer phone but when you're meditating for the first time, you're going to face those thoughts of like the things that are making you anxious and you don't want to deal with it. Sometimes it's even some work that you're putting off, or you dropped out of university or college and it's way past beyond the time for you to go back, and you're like feeling anxious in your life every day and feeling sad, and you don't know why. It's because you're resisting to the movements that you have to do. Even in physics, you learn this. There's not a single thing that is still. Nothing is still. Even if you grab like any piece of like this here, it's a plastic, right? And you put inside on top of a table, completely not moving. Is it still? It's moving through space and time at a velocity so high that it creates matter, that it becomes matter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the planet, the solar system, everything's moving through a fabric of reality. The solar system is not just, and that's another thing, like, right, when you look at these things, it kind of brings some peace. First it's scary, but like after you understand that there's these much bigger things than you, much bigger forces, and you're just part of these mechanics, then you understand that it's literally what life is all about. So like the solar system itself, it's not just this thing that we keep imagining from school, like sitting there and some planets moving around and that's it. No, it's this raging thing that's moving through around the galaxy. When dinosaurs existed, it was on the other side of the galaxy, literally on the opposite side of the galaxy, in distances that we can't even comprehend to human mind. Like traveling or even seeing at the other side of the galaxy is impossible, because all the light that is in the way, all the debris and particles and dust and everything. It's impossible to see on the other side. It's literally millions of light years away, and like meaning the distance that light would take to travel in millions of years. You release light and you wait millions of years. That distance is how far the dinosaurs were. Like it's on the other side of the galaxy. So like we're moving around that. And even the galaxy itself is also moving through space, and that's so like we're literally just existing because our matter is moving at such speeds that it's vibrating into existence, So like you're made of atoms, right? These atoms are always vibrating, but like they're literally emptiness. Your hand is made of 99.999% vacuum, nothingness, literally. And why can't you go through objects, right? Why can't you go through your phone or your table or anything if it's 99% vacuum? Because it's vibrating at such speeds that it exists in all places at the same time in this reality. If you analyze the atom at an atomic level, at a quantum level, you're going to see the atom vibrating and occupying this huge area by vibrating so fast that it's going everywhere, right? But like if you put a bunch of all the other atoms together and they're vibrating like this, they occupy a space so big that when you come to this dimension of our reality, it's matter, solid matter, But like imagine, for example, perfect example for this is ice cube and liquid water. Why can you make them go through each other? Because they're vibrating at a different level, But why can't you make one ice go through the other ice? Because they're vibrating at the same level. So they can't go through each other, Same thing, you can walk through the atmosphere right now. It's not like here there's air. Some people would say there's air here, and some people will say there's nothing here, right? It depends on how they see reality. They'll say, oh, there's nothing between us. Or they say, oh, there's just air between us. I say there's an ocean of gases between us, because that's what I see. I see us submerged by an ocean of gases, and this ocean of gases, you can really weight the weight of that pressure on you, and it's about 3 kilos every inch or something, cubic centimeter or something. So like it's the weight of air itself, because you're literally under the water. Your body evolved to push that against, so everything's like a balance, what I'm saying? Like when you understand these things, that you're not just existing, you're like literally the manifestation of matter into consciousness. Like your atoms. What are trees made of? People would say it's made of water. It's made of light. I've seen people say it's made of light. It's a good intuition, like thinking photosynthesis. It's made of light. No, that would be a lot of energy to make matter as dense as wood and leaves out of pure light. The tree is made of carbons. Basically, it's 90-something% carbon, and then there is like other materials, other ingredients, right? Like even oxygen itself, carbon monoxide, carbon monoxide, and other things. So like the tree is made 99% of carbon, and that carbon comes from the soil, the planet itself, basically, And the carbon that comes from that also once came from other trees, right? That's how when we want to prepare a farm or something, we're gonna throw a type of fertilizer that is based on other carbon life forms, like feces, for example. It's basically us putting a very rich in carbon and other things and other nutrients, soil onto the earth so that the tree can grow and take those nutrients out to form itself, right? Same thing as you, as a human. Throughout your lifetime, I think it's up until you're like 20 years old or something. When you're 20 or something, your whole body is already a whole new body. It's not the same body that came out of your mom. It's not, not even one single cell was in there in your mom anymore, because you lose all your cells and you replenish them with new ones. Bone cells, skin cells, hair, all of that stuff. You replenish all of that throughout your life. So imagine if you only eat McDonald's your whole life. What are you made of when you're 20? You're made of McDonald's. Exactly. You're made of whatever molecules were inside of that food that you ate, So you are what you eat, the same way as your mind is what you consume.
Yes.
So you have there is a correlation of all of these things, So and even these atoms, go.
I love what you just said, and I love how you described what the tree is made of, what we are made of, and that our mind is what we consume. And then when you look at the atoms and the carbon, everything that is around us, and our consciousness, and how we can change our perspectives on those material things that we think that are lifeless, is a whole new topic that I would like you to come back to the show and talk about it. But today, unfortunately, we have to come to an end. I feel very rude to...
Yeah, no problem. If you let me, I speak for hours.
Yes,
so
and
it's okay.
It's so beautiful to... It's beautiful to listen to you.
Let me just close a little bit of that thought of the atom thing. So the carbon that you're made of, and that came from trees and all of that stuff, all of this, what's important of understanding is that there's a finite number, because there's not a single atom that is created by life. So if you have a kid, right? If right now you grow a kid and then you have that kid and the kid grows, that kid is not new carbon. It's really just made of the carbon that you consumed throughout your life, because when you have a child, it's going to extract some of your own nutrients, and it's also going to extract some of the nutrients that you consume while you eat, right? So you have to have a different diet and all that stuff. So all of that, those carbons and all of that stuff also came from other things. And if you keep tracking everything, it goes back to stars itself, So really, the carbon and all the molecules that you're made of, they are the result of a physics process, a chemical process called fusion, right? So it's an unimaginable amount of energy that we're now discovering. We're creating fusion reactors for the first time in history. We're still testing them, but they're kind of working. We can't really stabilize the energy because it's a lot of energy. It's pretty much creating a sun itself, because the sun is a star, and the star is the only thing in nature capable of creating that process of fusion, So every single piece of atom that you're made of came from stars that blew up and then became gases and then formed in the planets and fell into the atmosphere and so on and so forth, right? So meaning there is a finite number of things for everything. Even if you had too many humans alive on the planet, that means you extracted all of that from the soil, and it's in the bodies of people, you know what I'm saying? So you are extracting from a limited source, carbon and molecules and everything. It's limited. It's always limited. I mean, we have huge amounts of it, but there is a limit, there is a limit. So if we put 30 billion people on the planet, and those people also have to consume even more and all of that stuff, it's not sustainable. No. That's why it's important for us to keep evolving and going to further developments, even going to other planets. It might be ridiculous. It might sound like, oh, it's going to be for rich people and stuff. No. And it might even at the beginning. Sure. So what? So it was every other type of expansion of our life, when we went to other countries and he explored other continents with the conflicts and all that stuff. But we're learning from all of that, and we have to keep going because it's all limited. But the whole universe has a lot more to offer for us.
Yeah.
So basically, just remember that everything is connected. The universe, everything, reality. And you're made of the reality itself. Stars blew up, and then everything came together to then form the first unicellular life form, right? Like one cell, and then that cell multiplied, and then eventually became a group of cells that then kept evolving, and then it started thinking, "Oh, I'm depressed." You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Because it forgot the whole connection of life itself.
Yeah.
Imagine, do you think animals, that's a perfect thing I have to say that. I know I'm extending you a little bit, but like the whole thing of analyzing how animals perceive reality. Animals are always in the present.
Yes.
They don't have the complexity of like the complex mind of like approaching reality and suffering by anticipation, suffering by imagination. Oh, this might happen tomorrow. Where's my life going at? No, they're just, I have to eat. That's the only thing that goes through their mind. I have to eat. Basically, they're just living in that present, right? And they don't. The only way an animal can perceive depression is if you torture an animal. So imagine this. What does that say about depression? It means that if you're feeling depressed, you're feeling tortured, and you're feeling tortured. Why? Because you're not expressing your life purpose.
Yes.
The same way as an animal feels happy because it's doing what it's meant to do. Like it's connected in his own purpose of his instincts and his desires, and he goes after. He gets the food and he feels happy and he keeps going. He doesn't feel sad that he has to sleep under the rain on a forest by a tree. Because he doesn't desire these other things of like more comfort and all that stuff. He doesn't complicate reality, life in itself. So it's a matter of everything. It's a choice. That's why it's a choice of how you perceive it, how you go about it. It's not like a choice that you feel depressed. No, it's a choice of how you perceive what is causing your depression and what you do about it and all of that stuff.
What a beautiful closing. I'm glad that you brought out the animals, because I can totally see this being true, and we can learn lots from the animals. We can learn lots from other people who go through depression and learn from their perspectives. And thank you so much for all your energy today. I'm sure you must feel exhausted now, or even more energized than ever.
No, we're more energized.
This is great. This is great. And
I like reflecting about things. It reminds me,
Yeah, no, this is great. And people have to hear this. People have to, sometimes be sucked out of
and drink water.
Drink water, stay hydrated. And I'll have you back here with us. All right.
Yeah. To me, it's not even like a pressure or anything. I'm just here having a conversation. So whenever you want to have that call, we can have that call.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Well, this was one of the longest interviews I ever had here. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. I think my main takeaway is that we need to open our minds. We need to be willing to see another person's perspective. And sometimes in doing so and letting go of our grip, of our opinions, we feel better. We feel more connected. All right, I'm going to let you go for now. Take good care. If you want to connect with Gabriel, I want to put all the links into the show notes, and I'll be out there for you very soon again. Bye-bye.